Howdy, folks. I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, here today to have another little chat about neutrinos, forecasts, stories, good times, all that. It is for Monday, the 27th of October, 2025. And here we are looking at the third line of the right angle cross of the unexpected. So, for those of you who are here for the deets, let me give you the deets and then we'll move into story time. And I also have something new today. Okay, so let me switch the camera and we'll look at those details, but I do have some good stories today. All right, so we are here on the, there we go, Monday, unexpected, the third. There are the details. All right, and I thought it would also show you, here we are in 3, preparation, that's where this is coming from. And more on preparation there for 28. And then we're also looking at 27, line 3. And this is where my stories will begin in talking about this greed. Because, there we go. There. Because I learned something really important about myself, at least I think it was important about myself. Now, those of you who know my chart, here's my little wand. I carry the 50th gate, line 3. Well, what happens when we have a resonance with the other side of the channel is that we usually will resonate to the other side of the channel and the line. So I hadn't gone back and looked that up for this one, but since it swung around, here we are, 27, line 3, and that's where I found that greed. And that's why I'm overweight, because of this greed, this desire for much more than I need. I thought before that it had been because of the 5th line in my profile, because 5th line profiles do have a tendency to accumulate things so that they can have the things so that when people come to them and say, oh, if only I had da da da, they can go bloop, there it is. There's the resource you need. So they want to have the answers. They want to have the practical solutions, the resources. And I'm sure that contributes to it as well. And also, it doesn't help that I'm a maker, and makers have to have a lot of things with which to make things. So this is part of my legacy from my ancestors, that I have a great facility with my hands to make things. But in order to do that, you have to have a lot of junk. And it's not a problem, I think, having the junk. It's a problem that the junk isn't organized so that I can find it when I need it. For instance, my daughter told me that if I'm going to be a witch this Halloween, I have to have a hat. She said that I have everything else to be a witch all by myself. I don't need anything more, but I do need a hat. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll make a hat. Ay. So the new thing that I want to bring in is to introduce my favorite book, my own personal Bible. This is one of the oldest personal books I own. I actually paid for this book with money. And I've been storing wisdom in it ever since. So I thought I would let you see a little bit of my magic, because you can see I have not done anything beforehand, but I will pick a page and we'll see if it has some wisdom for us. Let's see, it does. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. That's a good one. That is a good one. And it's absolutely true. This moves to the 27th gate of nurturing, where I personally can forgive myself for not knowing how to be the best of mothers, for messing my children up. You know, I read this book yesterday. It was really cute. and it actually had a resonance to human design. It was a cooking book, something about keto for unicorns or eat the patriarchy or something like that. But anyway, she was saying, "You're a unicorn, you beautiful unicorn." And she was also saying that keto is made up, it's imaginary, it's an idea. And you're a unicorn, and that's made up and imaginary too. But if you think of it as being true, then you can learn something from it. And I thought, hmm, yeah. And one of the things that she said in the book is that just get used to the fact if you make children, you're going to mess them up. Period. That's just the way it is. You're going to damage them. You're going to hurt them in ways that they will remember. And they will probably hold against you at some point. I know mine did and do. But that's the nature of kids. That's the whole thing. You can't take that personally. All you can do is do the best you got. And the best you got is what we're all doing. So, even those of us that are doing things really, really shitty, the only reason that we're doing things really, really shitty is because we ourselves didn't have the support and our parents didn't have it and theirs. And we're looking now at just generations upon generations of trauma. So we all have to forgive ourselves for not knowing what we didn't know. All right. Greed, adventurism combined with intuitive caution. Cool, all that. But we're really looking at the nature of risk, and that's why I was telling this story about the groove and Cassidy. So the reason Cassidy is cool, and also my friend Holly, is that these people lived naturally, intuitively in their lives by this, I feel a feeling, I will go left kind of a thing. And in doing that, they lived lives that were not really acceptable, but they were true to some internal compass that they had. And in knowing my friend Holly, who I now realize was something that I needed in my life as a small personal example of this larger example of Cassidy that influenced so many other influential people in America, to show me how that goes, to give me personal experience with this kind of Cassidy energy so that I could do some of that myself, so that I could release myself from the strict lines in which I had been raised in the cult. I was raised very normal. I mean, for being inside a cultish kind of religion, but about logic, about being good, about obeying, about doing your schoolwork, and always being there, always, all the things. And in order to get to the other side that I needed to be at, I needed to have an example. Who knows? I mean, this is all in retrospect that I'm seeing. And it's kind of funny because in comparison with her, Holly, I was the logical one, the straight one, the normal one. I was always coming in with, some kind of some wisdom, something more socially acceptable, let's say that. And after she had gone her own way and I didn't know her so much anymore, I met my current partner, this chart over here, and it was funny because he was raised super normal and not under the influence of a cult, thankfully, so not as much trauma to deal with. But in comparison with him, all of a sudden I became the Holly figure. I became the one that was wild and gonna go off and do something kind of crazy and not easy to understand and moving totally intuitively rather than logically. Because of course he's the absolute definition of logic, making sense of confusion, figuring things out, skepticism, all this kind of head activation up there. And I was just like, wow, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, So in some ways I became the the Holly to his Rebecca, which is also funny because he's often remarked how in our relationship he also switched roles from being, his previous partner of almost 2 decades was. Um, she had, more money, more resources, more social acceptability, more clout, that sort of thing, and then when he got together with me, floop, he switched also. And in our relationship, he became the one with more resources, more clout, more social acceptability. So it was an interesting flip flop for both of us to get together. But that's not the point. The point that I'm getting to is the groove. Now, when I didn't know anything about quantum physics, I was not thinking of it as a scientific thing that I was looking for. I had seen in my early discoveries after having separated from the family, from the religion, from all of the stability that I had known in the past, and trying to find my feet, trying to find who I was going to be and what I was going to be. Um, I had experienced some completely strange, bizarre things that I did not understand, and I was kind of freaked out by them, and I wanted to understand them. And so I called it magic in those days because, frankly, it was. And I came slowly to the idea of the groove, which for me was this sort of kind of nebulous idea, but it had to do with, okay, if we look at a waveform, a waveform does make a groove. It makes a dip, the highs and the lows, yeah? So the low is a dip. And if you think of that low as being in a plane, you have your plane, your flatness, and then the dip is like a wrinkle in a fabric, yeah? And I felt in some of my magical times, or what I call now more powered times, that if I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing in the moment I was supposed to be doing it, I had this feeling of being cradled by the universe, of being supported, of being like working together. Sometimes I felt it was being being able to see the gears of the universe shifting and grinding together and being just in exactly the right place to do the right things. Oh, if I go left here, that's where the groove is. That's where the right move is. That's where I belong right now. And as I look back now, I see, oh, I was looking for the serendipity. I was really finding my place within that 46th gate of learning how to be in the right place at the right time. Of course, I didn't have the benefit of human design in those days to be able to understand that, but I was moving intuitively in the right direction. And since I discovered quantum physics, I understand that it's based in scientific principles. So what was before magic has now become more science-based. Okay, fine, that's cool. But I find that there is actually value now in swinging back around to that idea of the groove, because it swings back around to serendipity, being in the right time, in the right place. And I still kind of find myself intuitively following that feeling of, where am I supposed to be right now? If I am in the place where I'm supposed to be right now, and I'm not, jumping ahead, skipping steps like a manifesting generator is prone to do, then there will be this phenomenon. I figured this out through much hard experience. This phenomenon that everything I need will be in the moment within the reach of my arms. So I can tell sometimes how right I am in my perfect place and time by seeing, how far do I have to walk to get that thing I need? Is it downstairs? That I might not be in the groove exactly. But there's another aspect to it, and that is that, first of all, there are variations, right? To still like be mostly in the groove. It's like when you see those movies, like what was it? The not the Great Race. No, it was the something like the Gumball Rally, that movie. Well, anyway, they're doing a car race cross country, and through part of the movie, they're driving cars through these like aqueducts or water channels that go under bridges. But anyway, it's supposed to be a waterway, but a lot of times that waterway is dry, but then it'll have these sloped edges on the sides. They like these for car races because or for car chases, because then one car can go up and then the one who's chasing them will flip and no drama. But if you go up on the edge, it does have a tendency to line you back down into the bottom of the groove, which goes to another one of my ongoing theories about the nature of alternate realities. But we'll get into that story later. It's not quite time for that one yet. Where I am wanting to go with this is that, first of all, Cassidy and my friend Holly had this sort of magical way about them of just following the groove and valuing following the groove over what other people would have said should have been their values, which would have been maybe taking care of their family, their offspring, their responsibilities. Oh, well, you got to let that be and not have a judgment about that. But if you do release the judgment on that, then you can be just glad that you were able to spend some time with such a magical being who's so in tune with some aspect of their self, their true self and purpose, that they would single-mindedly follow that path rather than, oh, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, which is, in some way, something we should all be moving away from. We should all be moving away from doing what we're supposed to do and doing what really, really moves us on the inside. What grooves us, what makes our cork rise, what makes us truly joyful on the inside. Or as something I saw the other day said, that secret little pleasure and passion that you kind of wish you could be doing right now instead. That. It's a process, and we really shouldn't judge ourselves for being in the midst of the conditioning that we were all forced to be in. So, yeah. But anyway, it's moving towards this concept of the groove, and I will be explaining more about that later, but for now, that's enough. And I can go on to talking about time travel, which I mentioned last time. Oh, and I even have some time to talk about time travel. This is lovely. So, I've experienced this in different ways. In the very beginning of my magical journey, this is one of the things that freaked me out. It was basically time traveling. I started I don't remember the exact times, but I do remember it was daytime. I left my house in the day, so it would have been like maybe 2 o'clock-ish in the afternoon, across the street to talk to a friend. And I sat with that friend for subjectively maybe 4 hours. And then, and it seemed like I looked at their, at their clock, and it seemed like time had really, really moved by. And then when I went back to my house and looked at the clock again, it was like 2:15 or something like that. And I was really freaked out because I thought, wait a second. And this must have been in the warmer summer times when the light was still going on, so I couldn't really tell by the movement of light. But all the clocks weren't acting right, and time seemed to really be dilating around me. And there's another kind of time traveling that I have done, and that is the time travel that happens when we get into a car alone. You actually do time travel or can time travel when you get into a car with other people, but you can't have anybody looking at their watches or obsessing about the time. This is what I've noticed. If you cover up the clocks and don't look at them and you set your intention to arrive in a certain relative time. Like, let's say you have a journey that usually takes half an hour, but you're not worried about that. You're really not concerned about it, because if you're worried or concerned about it, it won't work. But you just release all expectations and you say, right now, I'm in a bubble. It doesn't contain the future. It doesn't contain the past. It only contains the now. You don't look at any clocks and you say, wouldn't it be lovely if I was to arrive just by some magical way, just at the exact moment I need to arrive, just on time, whatever's perfect, then. And then you just drive. You don't worry about it. You don't stress about it. You don't get road rage. You just experience yourself in the now driving. And I have many times been able to do this trick where, yeah, I just arrive just on time. And the actual time that the trip was supposed to take doesn't matter at all. And in fact, I've even gotten to the point that when I'm powered, I can track exactly how much power I have by looking ahead. If I'm in one of those streets, where you're driving around sometime and you can see like 5, 6, 7, 8 traffic lights ahead of you, I can track how far by seeing how clear my path is ahead of me, energetically, by watching those green lights switch as I approach them to green, 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 so that I can go down that whole entire level without having to stop at a single stoplight. And that, when I'm powered, that happens all the time. That's like normal when I'm powered. It's very interesting, because when I'm not powered, it's just like normal. I'll stop at a stoplight, and some are programmed to work in certain ways, but when I'm powered, that does not seem to be a factor. I can get through heavy traffic very easily, and it's kind of funny. A little trick. When I'm powered, I realize that the trick is not to get there as fast as possible. The trick is to get there as slow as possible. So I'm always driving as slow as I possibly can until someone comes behind me. Because when someone comes behind me, they want to keep the speed limit. So then I have to speed up for them, but then they'll usually pass me up because going the speed limit is not good enough for most people. And then if there's nobody behind that, then I can just go at whatever speed, just looking at the world, looking at the universe, and knowing that I'm in this very plastic time bubble. And I don't know how aware other people are of it, but I've done it enough times now that I know it's a thing. So it's just a matter of experimenting with that thing for other people to figure it out. But so few people do, because when they get into a car, they're very focused on arriving. And so they have all this like mechanics of, I gotta get to work, or what's her face, or whatever, on time, that they kind of that there's no place for experimentation in there. But anyway, I have experimented in there, and it's fascinating. The point that I'm getting around to is that I have experienced something like time travel in doing these transits. You wouldn't think it, and for a long time I thought, oh, it's just me, it's just, oh, no. But now I'm thinking it actually is a thing, partly because of in doing these transits, and not when I was tracking them by myself, because when I was tracking them by myself, I was just doing a day's work in a day's time. But as soon as I came into having to record the transits, I had to start living 1 or 2 or more days ahead. So then I would be recording Wednesdays or Thursdays transit on Monday, and in studying those transits and making those recordings deeply, it's like I've been partaking of the energy of that day. And that's partly why I can never remember what day I'm doing a transit for. I'm like, it's today. What's the number of that? I have to look. But the travel happens when I discover that the transit I'm recording is the transit energy I'm feeling, even though technically that energy will not be appearing in the world for 2 or even 3 days ahead. So then I get this sort of offset kind of a feeling, because I will experience the transit energy 2 or 3 days ahead of time and really be living in that transit energy when I'm giving that report. And then when the transit actually hits that time, I'm as taken by surprise by that transit energy as anybody else. And I go, wait a second, what is today's transit actually doing? I look back in my records. Oh, sure enough, the transit energy from a couple of days ago for where I am recording wise swings back around and hits me. And I realize it's a kind of shifting between time streams. Very interesting, at the very least, as some kind of a theory, because I've noticed that both time and reality streams are much more plastic than we might have been led to believe that they are. But I can talk about all that matrix kind of glitchy stuff on another day. I will make a note of that so that I don't necessarily forget that later. Oh, songs. As I was doing something else around, this song came on my playlist, and I thought it was a good one for talking about this time travel thing, because in this song, Happy to Be Here by Wookiefoot, he says, I'm a time traveler in time and space, moving at 60 minutes an hour. And I thought, yeah, except when you're not. Sometimes you move at more than 60 minutes an hour. And sometimes you shift between reality streams without even understanding that you're shifting between reality streams. And that's one of the most fascinating things that I have learned in my power-ups, is this stuff about shifting between reality streams. That really blows my mind, but I cannot deny the evidence of my senses. And I think I mentioned it all comes down to a package of graham crackers. Really a fascinating story. But the song that I had actually planned to be for today, and I don't remember why, we'll have to listen to it again and find out why. It is As Good a Reason by Paris Paloma. It's probably because of Paris Paloma, and that's the song that came up when I first discovered her. But what a powerful woman that is! Wow! She's got some heavy kind of commentary going on. And that reminds me, I was going to look up her chart, because that's a fascinating human. So I'm going to go look up Paris Paloma, and if I find anything interesting, then I will let you know. And I will also make a note about, what was it? Time travel and... shit. I'll have to listen to it myself, because I did mention it just a minute ago on recording. I love it when that happens. So, I'll swing around, I'll take care of those details, and come back tomorrow with another transit report and interesting details, interesting stories. We'll move on. Ciao.